video. And once again, this is a fascinating story. I love it. David Zaslav is working fast. I think that what he wants to do is bring that stock price back up. That's not good. And he wants to be able to have splashier presentations because Disney absolutely buried Warner Bros. Discovery at the upfronts just a few weeks ago. That was brutal. Now, speaking of Disney, I've always said that studios shouldn't be afraid to copy other studios' homework. They certainly copy each other's movies, especially Disney, which has it all so beautifully and publicly laid out. What a structure, what a corporate structure. And finally, Zaslav is not only planning to restructure Warner Bros. Discovery to have verticals just like Disney that all report to him, but get this, he's actually getting advice from Bob Iger, who really hates the person that Bob Iger picked to replace himself. You know, Bob Iger's so upset about this. Bob Chapek. There have been stories percolating for a while now that Bob Iger really hates the way things eventually went down. But wow, I mean, is Iger helping the competition? Revenge served cold? Very, very interesting. Zaslav is also looking to hire back Alan Horn, at least in an advisory role. Time Warner, of course, which used to own Warner Brothers before it was sold to AT&T and now to Discovery. This is why Disney never wants to be purchased. Disney has that vital independence. No parent company. But anyway, Alan Horn was forced to retire by Time Warner way back in 2011 at 68. Which many regard as the beginning of this bad run that Warner Brothers is currently suffering from because the studio was incredibly successful under Horn. Jeff Robinov, though, to be fair, was a great executive, a great film executive, who quit when Kevin Tsujihara, over from the theme park division, got the top job at Warner Brothers in 2013, which of course ended up being a total disaster, Tsujihara. Anyway, Bob Iger lured Horn out of retirement to come work at Disney and head up their film division, and that turned out great, as we all know. And perhaps Iger is helping to bring Horn back to Warner Brothers now. Wow. It's crazy that Iger will help the competition reorganize, and is perhaps the most interesting element of this developing story, and underscores how much Iger hates Chapek, and I think is angling to maybe get Chapek out of there by increasing the success of the competition. That's just nuts. Anyway, but I love it. What a story. With Emmerich out today, at the rate that Zaslav is moving, I believe he'll have a new head of DC Films, replacing Walter Hamada by the end of the year, if not sooner. With DC Films, DC has a little bit of time because they have so many films already in the pipeline. But DC Films is going to become its own vertical like Marvel over at Disney. Warner Brothers Animation is also becoming its own vertical. Everybody else has these very competitive animation studios. Warner Brothers has some good projects, but not to the level of like Disney and Universal. And hopefully, I think Wizarding World should become its own vertical as well. So what happened to Toby Emmerich and why? This is fascinating. So I thought Zaslav would keep Emmerich around for like a year while he took his time finding a replacement. I didn't think Emmerich was going to stick around, but I thought he'd stick around a little longer. But clearly, with tremendous pressure from Wall Street and fans, and to put up a really good, make no mistake about it, the reason Warner Bros. Discovery wants to do a good job with these presentations is to make Wall Street happy. But anyway, Zaslav is surely eager to get this show on the road. But he and Emmerich are extremely good friends, very good friends. Emmerich has a lot of friends in Hollywood, in fact, on the business side, with executives in suits, even though a lot of talent finds him frustratingly risk-averse and slow to action. But Warner Brothers Films is a mess, even with some gems amongst all the garbage, so there have to be repercussions. Emmerich just could not stay. Therefore, Emmerich is no longer the head of Warner Brothers Films, but he does have a producing deal at the studio. This is exactly what happened to Amy Pascal over at Sony when they had the email leak and resulting scandal from her emails, right? It's bad enough the emails leaked, but she wrote some pretty bad stuff. And she had a rough time of it. She had a very rough time, but she has thrived. She came out on top, particularly thanks to being in charge of all the Spider-Man movies, which of course now those aren't great either across the board, but she's fortunate that she's working with Kevin Feige on the Tom Holland ones, and she's done a very nice job with Into the Spider-Verse. But Little Women was a big win for her. That was a great movie. And she just moved her production company from Sony to Universal, where she's doing the Madonna bio, with Madonna herself involved. But Pascal is still at Sony with the Spider-Man franchise. She has not left those movies. So Toby Emmerich is still very much a part of the Warner Brothers family and has a great relationship with Zaslav, which means he should be able to get some really big movies off the ground. He doesn't have a franchise like Pascal had Spider-Man to kind of turbocharge him, so he's going to have to he's going to have to look for the talent that he still has a good relationship with. And there will be a few. I think he'll get he's really championing Elvis. I think he'll get something off the ground. But he's not making any decisions for Warner Brothers films anymore, which I think will delight many, from fans to talent. I know talent was very, very frustrated with him. I believe when Walter Hamada goes, and I think he'll go, he'll either get a producing deal as well, or he'll go back to heading up Warner Brothers horror division. I don't know if he'd want to do that. He might want to have his own producing deal. I don't know. That would seem like a backward step for Hamada. I mean, he did so well with the horror movies. That's how he got the DC gig, and he inherited an awful gig, to be fair to Hamada. So I think that he's going to probably want his own producing deal. And I think he'll have to, he's going to have to start out at Warner Brothers. He might move to another studio eventually, but I think Zaslav does not want any drama, so he's going to give these people producing deals. I think the speed of Emmerich's being replaced also speaks to the musical chairs of Hollywood execs right now. Hold on to your butts. This is where it gets fascinating even more so. This is due to Disney jettisoning the very talented Fox team, when they took over Fox Studios, and they didn't need those people because they already had their own, and they put those talented executives on the market. Also, there's an emphasis on digital these days at studios, streaming services, and so tech people have been brought in, which has pushed out experienced Hollywood executives finding themselves without a job, even though they're still very good at their job. So you're like, wow, look who's available. And other companies are very tempted to play musical chairs. And then also when the digital services struggle with these tech executives, which you just saw at Warner Brothers, they're out, and then they're now looking for, again, musical chairs. They're like, okay, who's still out here that we can get? Like, look at this musical chairs. Warner Brothers has lured away Amazon MGM's Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy, who did great work over there. And now Amazon MGM is looking to replace them with Emma Watts, who was doing great work at Fox until she was let go by Disney. Then she went over to Paramount with Jim Giannopoulos, who also used to head Fox. And they were both just fired, as I told you, because Paramount wanted more of a digital focus. So Emma Watts, this would be her third studio in it's like during the pandemic. That's nuts. And she's a very talented executive. But you'll notice there are not any new names here. No new talent is rising up. Mike DeLuca has been around forever. He ran New Line, interestingly, a job that Emmerich also had. And then he ran DreamWorks before getting his own producing deal at Sony before he was an independent producer for a very long time. And then he took the MGM gig just in 2020, and he's already moving to Warner Brothers. So that was a good idea on his part, because it started a journey to him to going back to Warner Brothers and getting the top gig, which he's never had. I don't know why none of these companies are calling up Jeff Robinov, by the way, who didn't get a producing deal at a studio. He started his own independent production company and has not been able to do anything with it. But Jeff Robinov, I would consider him for DC Films, quite frankly. I would call him up. He's the one who he was overseeing both Nolan and Snyder projects, by the way. He's very talented. And also has great relationships with talent. As for the SnyderVerse, I'm afraid I honestly still don't see it coming back, even with people like DeLuca or Robinov maybe, who are friendly with Snyder. Because you can see, as I just said, Zaslav was very risk-averse, the way he's handling things. And I don't think he wants any more drama. He wants a DC Films that looks like the MCU. I think not only in terms of executives, but creative. I think he's going to want a same creative structure of one shared universe starting over from scratch. How from scratch? Let's see how these upcoming DC films do. I think this is going to be like an audition period to see if they stick around in their roles. Because no top exec, Zaslav wants a top exec to run DC, and no one's going to come in if they're just trying to fix the huge problems that currently exist. They're going to want to start over and do what they want. It's very hard to find an exec or any behind-the-camera talent who just wants to make one thing for the rest of their lives, which makes Kevin Feige all the more special. He's like, I'd love to make Marvel content forever, and that's what he's going to do. Zaslav, the trades report, has approached Todd Phillips to maybe be at least an advisor for DC Films. But I don't think Phillips wants to do more than Joker 2. I think Phillips has other mountains that he wants to climb, because he's a creative. He's not an executive. And Matt Reeves, by the way, did a great job. So DC is already on the mend. It's not like it's just a total mess right now. Zaslav needs to find a talented production executive who is also a fan of DC Comics. That is crucial because even with all her experience producing for Spielberg and Lucas, which is why she got the Lucasfilm gig when Disney took it over, Kathleen Kennedy's lack of affinity for Star Wars itself has created huge problems as well, which it's still reeling from, and why she's now leaning so heavily on Dave Filoni. But even Dave Filoni, is a creative. I don't really think that Dave Filoni wants to be the head. I don't know if Dave Filoni even wants to be the head of Lucasfilm. I think he'd rather make TV shows and make movies. And when you're the head of DC Films, you don't get to make any more movies yourself. You don't get to direct. You don't get to write. You're a producer. Kevin Feige is a producer. I mean, you certainly have a say in all those things, but I think it's too much to ask a creative talent to give that up. So basically, Star Wars also, by the way, has been copying Marvel, doing the same thing. Everybody wants to be Disney/Marvel these days. And shockingly, Bob Iger is willing to help you do it. I wonder if I'll be making a new head of Disney video some point in the near future. We'll see. Their stock ain't doing so well either. Stock really motivates Hollywood. I told you, it's always about money. And that not only includes making money, but the stock share. Look how Netflix has been shattered due to their stock plummeting. Stock is a serious business. Wall Street has huge influence on Hollywood. So what do you think of the new Warner Brothers Discovery developments? Why do you think it's all coming together? And what do you think of this musical chairs situation in Hollywood right now? And do you have any suggestions for the head of DC Films? It's almost impossible to think of somebody because you wouldn't know who they were because you can't pick a creative exec. So good luck, Zaslav. I nominate Jeff Robinoff. That's who I would pick. I'd certainly at least have a conversation with him. All right, so share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.